No. Here.
Recording, it is 4 o'clock, and just because it's being recorded in person today, we have Sergio, Bob, Jonathan, Chief, Dave, Joe, Dave, George, Trisha, Wendy, Jim, and Danielle. There's no one right now online, and that is that. It is 4 o'clock exactly. So I have that on the record, because you can't see everyone.
Exactly.
All right?
Okay, we're gonna start off with the roll call, the moment of silence, pledge allegiance, and then public comment. And following that, we have the consent agenda. Does anybody have any discussion with the consent agenda? With that, we got whole business, ordinance 1987, the amendment to the water bond ordinance. Who would like to talk about this? This is second reading, correct?
Yes, so you
Yep.
had first read at the last meeting. This is just to allow for the larger bond amount and the change in the scope for the projects for that water bond. Everything else remains.
Anybody have discussion since we already went through this? No, if not, then we're gonna start new business. The first one is the Surety bond.
Surety bond.
Surety, the
The surety.
Wolverine Pipeline Company. Don't like the name, but.
So back in 1967 or 69, I can't remember which, the town approved a project for Wolverine to work on the pipeline throughout town to do repairs, put some new in, take some of them out. And as part of that agreement, they had to put up a surety bond to a performance bond to be sure that they did what they were supposed to. Representative of the of Wolverine and handles these types of things approached me about a couple weeks ago. That never got released. They are asking that we please release that for them. So you'll be asked to pass a motion and allow that bond to be released back to them.
Any questions on this? It's $10,000 bond. With that, let's move forward to the All City Management Services for crossing guards.
Yeah, you want me to take it? Okay. So at the direction of council, you remember, we wanted to see if we could cut down on the crossings. Lieutenant Roman worked with All City Management. We got the counts and we recommended removing 5 crossings, so going from 17 to 12 crossings. At the time, council came back and said, how did the school feel about it? Since then, we've been reaching out to Tripp. He wasn't answering the phone. I finally sent him a text. He was in Ketchikan with his wife on a cruise.
Nice.
Alaska.
To his credit, he said, if you need something, text me. I'm just watching Lori eat some silver salmon. I said, council wanted me to ask opinion on cutting 5 crossing guards. He said, well, where were you gonna come from? I sent him a picture of the memo with the 5 crossings. He said, that's a lot. Can I get back to you? And I just found out we hired a new superintendent yesterday. So we really haven't been able to reach out to anybody at the school. We put this on hold until we were able to speak with the school, but school starts in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we need some direction.
Well, I just, if I could jump in, I just want to make a comment that I'm very uncomfortable reducing the number of crossing guards, but that's me, that's Dave Downs. Because I sure don't want anything to happen and I don't want to be associated with something happened to children. That's how I feel.
Any other discussion on this? Jonathan, anything?
No.
Joe?
Oh. If it's okay then to have it on the agenda in the original 17 crossings then?
It's a one, I forget, 1 or 2 year agreement.
We've been asking for 2. They usually do a 1-year agreement. But the council before this one asked that we get 2 years and lock in the price. Because the price, every contract goes up.
I guess they do have a common case. This is the school town crossing guards. Historically, wasn't this an expense the school town paid for?
No.
Does the town always pay for this?
Police department managed the crossing guards up until,
10 years ago.
Hendricks. Superintendent Hendricks decided as a cost savings, he cut this bus service. And anybody within a mile had to walk to school. As a result of that, we got requests from all the parents when they, one of the big things is my child's got to cross Ridge Road, my child's got to cross Columbia Avenue. The council decided to go ahead and hire the crossing guard company because we didn't have enough officers to cover all the crossings that they were concerned about. And as a result, we got strapped with this expense. I don't have a memo in front of me, I'm sorry, but I think it's gonna be around $170,000.
Yeah, 173,808, is that with the 12 or the 17?
That's 17.
Okay,
We're obligated to continue to pay it since we were paying it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that by state law? I thought that.
There's case law, and maybe Dave, maybe it rings a bell if not, but basically there's been cases where they went in and said, this isn't, if the police were covering it before, this isn't something that we should bear the cost of for town. This is the school that should bear this cost. And basically the judgment was whoever had control of that prior to this lawsuit will maintain control of that. So in some instances, the school paid, in some instances, the police department continued to pay. Well, we were on the losing end of that decision. Even though our case, we never even brought a case, but that's my understanding of the case law in the state of India.
that's $173,000 out of police budget.
It usually comes out of the LT fund,
LIT.
LIT.
It's a 1 year,
Oh, it is 1 year this time.
August 1, 2025,
Used to-
June 30th, 2020.
Used to be 2 years, but that's,
Since it's a 1 year agreement, there's a new superintendent, and in the coming year, you can have a conversation with the new superintendent after he gets in place and maybe talk about reducing the number for next year.
I'm good with that. Is everybody good with that?
I'm good with that.
Let's keep it, because we need to reduce costs.
okay.
So we'll keep it at 17. Just keep it.
Do we have access to the numbers that you're collecting as far as crossings and? what we were-
I thought it
what
was
we were
attached, it
considering?
was attached to. the
Yes, it was
It's attached. Okay. Next, we have no number ordinance amending Lake Business Center. Who's talking about that? Sergio?
This was before the planning commission request to amend lot 3 of the Lake Business Center PUD. They're proposing to create lot 4 out of as part of lot 3. They're looking to do a 2-story, 30,000 square foot office building. That's the Rush Orthopedics.
They already have their plans. They submitted the plans. They're nice. They're gonna be right behind
Starbucks.
Starbucks or the other one?
Okay, Starbucks.
Yeah, but yeah,
Between Starbucks and Pepsi Go.
yeah. Any questions?
They meet all the requirements, landscaping and
They, it was part of the PUD, they created bulk standards, design guidelines for them and quite a bit of landscaping on the park.
Or planning board, final. Any other questions?
Yes, I do have a question. I just want to confirm, this is not the Lansing Country Club parcel. This is the old Simmons factory.
It's the old Simmons factory right behind Noodles, actually. There's a lot over there.
Starbucks. Yeah, there's a big open section.
Okay, with that, fire hydrant flow, water main capacity testing.
This is me. This is a 3-year contract with Emmy Simpson for the fire hydrant flow testing. What they do is when they come in, they flow the hydrants, give you, all the static levels, readings to make sure that your fire flow is sufficient for your ISO ratings, which has to do with the insurance for the town. And also they flush your system out. So it's for water quality and fire flow protection. 3-year contract, 26, 27, 28. They'll come in and do a third of a town at a time.
Any questions? With that, let's move on with the 120 water annual renewal.
This is the renewal for 120 water. They do all of our monitoring for our lead service lines, and they do all the submittal to IDEM. And this is to continue doing this. They also do the brochures and then all the handouts for the residents in town as well, for the town. It's required, right?
Any questions? Okay, let's go on with chipper purchase.
Jim's finally letting me bring this to you guys.
Another chipper.
I'm looking to purchase a chipper, from Alexander Equipment for Morbark Beaver and brush chipper. It is, this will give us 3 chippers in our fleet. We have, this year we had 1 chipper break down and it was gone for over a month and a half.
No, we did.
Yeah, he skipped it one. We'll go back to it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this is for the purchase of another chipper. This chipper is larger. It's got a bigger opening. It can take on larger diameter trees and brush. It also comes with a winch, which will help our guys tremendously. And yes, we're looking to add this to our fleet.
Comes with a winch.
It's like a-
Winch or a winch?
You can pull, you
It's not a
can,
winch.
you can pull branches, pull tops in.
Feel like I'm in high school.
Could we
Yeah,
put a nice-
guys.
Could we put a nice graphic, wrap it and make it fun?
It already has, you know.
Does it?
Safety stickers. If
Safety
you did
stickers.
Oh, I see a beaver stick.
have it,
There's one.
kind of monster.
There's one on there.
Okay. Any questions regarding the chipper?
No,
With
this will
that-
be an additional,
Yes.
good.
We've staffing for to run 3 at a time.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I forgot the,
Yeah.
thanks, Dave, the,
Middle of the water valve.
yeah, water and valve assessment exercise program.
This is for Emmy Simpson, another 3-year contract with Emmy Simpson to come in and exercise our water distribution system valves. When you're working on these valves and you have water leaks, you need to be able to close them and isolate, and this will help us do this.
Yes.
It's much needed maintenance.
Any questions? Easy. And the last computer equipment purchase.
All right, this one is a continuation of the computer replacement program that the school council's been doing. We started back in March when this council approved purchase of hardware, the desktop computers for staff here in town hall now. We're moving on to replacing laptop computers for those employees that have laptops or need laptops. So we got a quote from them for the laptops, monitors, associated accessories at about $65,000, almost $66,000. Which is less than Yark at the school town. I think did a good job at reducing the price. Was able to knock it down to under 70,000 and then knock it down a little bit more to 65, 62,000.
When I see our comptroller smiling, shaking her head. Any questions on this?
I think we have to do it. We have to keep up with the times.
Yeah, we do.
Have the latest equipment to be able to process things.
Any other let's move on to, redevelopment commission. Same thing, call to order, roll call, public comment, then we basically just have the consent agenda. Do we have any questions over the consent agenda? If not, let's move on to discussion. Jim, please.
So this item here on title lit office staffing, I've been here for 3 months now, so I wanted to give you my thoughts and observations on the operations in the town manager's office and the staffing level. If you had a chance to read my memo, I explained in here, there's a lot goes on in the town manager's office, and I'm sure you know that there's a lot of different functions related to human resources, risk management, daily operations, obviously. There's a lot involved and more staffing is needed. So I provided you with this list of the assessment where I looked at in some of the areas on policies and procedures. It's always a good practice to review your policies and procedures on a regular basis. I think there's several policies and procedures that we have in place that maybe aren't current, need to be updated. There's some functions that may not fully describe what the policy or procedure should be. If that's the case, that needs to be evaluated and put policies and procedures in place. I gave a couple examples here. You know, some of them are pretty minor, special event application. The procedure for approving those just needs to be improved. We found out that there's a charge for that isn't being assessed. So we need to evaluate whether we want to do that or not. Yeah, that's in the municipal code. And then if we want to continue to assess that either not or adjust it, we can change the municipal code. And I put that in there as an example because some of what we do ties to the municipal code, and we need to see, are we actually doing what the code says? And following the proper policy or procedure? And if we're not, why not? And do we want the code to match the procedure or vice versa? So those are the types of things that need to be reviewed in that area. Another item I have here is human resources. What I found is.
I'm sorry, Jim, I'm trying, this is a document you meant to send.
It's in the, it's on trouble.
I'm sure, okay.
Human resources, a lot of what's done in this area I found is somewhat decentralized. I think, you know, that's taken place from the time out of necessity. Those functions really need to be brought back fully into the town manager's office, and have that managed on a regular basis. And that covers, you know, onboarding, recruiting, employees, handling, FMLA requests, doing background checks, doing training, all those areas. Those things need to be taking place are important. Making sure we're in compliance with, you know, all the employment laws, posting all the posters, things like that. So that needs to be centralized in the town manager's office. Communications, we talked about this, and I'll get into this a little bit more with the proposal we have from Structure Point, but we don't have a dedicated person, as you know, to manage all of our communications, internally and externally. And what I mean by that is making sure that our message is the same, going out to the community, from all the departments. We've got messages coming out, you know, from a variety of different people, which is fine, but they really should be centralized into a communication specialist, you know, who can work with the department head or staff and craft the message. So it says what we want it to say, and the message is consistent with the narrative that we want to present to the community. And also the message to future residents, the message to businesses we're trying to attract. It goes beyond that, okay? So there's a lot involved here. It includes public relations, media relations, putting out press releases, promoting the community, marketing the community, doing all of that. So that's a whole nother function that really needs to be taken on you know, as a separate role by another position. Economic development, there's not much that needs to be discussed about here because this position is already budgeted for. We already put the salary in the salary ordinance. And I know you had started to initiate the recruitment for the position, and then paused it. So I want to restart that recruitment and get this position filled. I think everybody knows that this is a vital position. We really need somebody dedicated here full-time to manage economic development, primarily to be more proactive in seeking out businesses, getting them to come to Homewood and working with existing businesses to help them out.
To the bill back up.
All right.
See, we were listening.
Um, So working with existing businesses, you know, to meet their needs and help retain them in town. And a lot of this has to do with TIF district and TDD. And what's available for incentives and assisting those businesses. Both those are that we want to keep in town and both the businesses that we're trying to attract. Risk management is another function here that needs to be taken care of. This is both insurance in general, health insurance, but also risk management, liability insurance, processing claims. This is again somewhat decentralized among different departments and needs to really be centralized and focused in the town manager's office. I included facilities here primarily for the town hall. I think we've discussed this a little bit before, that we really need to look at renovating the town hall. And I think we need to look at doing that for the other facilities as well, for the reasons I state in here, because I think our facilities, they're getting older. Some of them are in disrepair. I don't think they meet the current operational needs of the departments, in particular, police and public works. And that needs to be evaluated, and see what we can do to renovate those buildings and bring them up to the standards they really need to be at. And I give one example of the lack of true locker rooms in the public works department. They don't have a locker room. They have lockers, but they don't have a locker room. And the locker room that I saw in the police department, I don't feel is good enough for what our employees need. So I think we really need to spend some time on focusing on our facilities. And that's something that would be led and managed out of the town manager's office. So having said all that, if you go to the last page, if you're looking at this, I broke down the different positions we're talking about. Director of Communications, Economic Development Director, and the position I think we really need to create and have an assistant town manager. Carry on primarily human resources, but also take on the other functions that I mentioned here with risk management, helping with day-to-day operations, reviewing policies and procedures, helping oversee IT management, doing research and analysis. And this person would also be a resource to the other departments on human resources, but also in other areas, you know, coordinating work, policies and procedures between departments, being able to do some research and analysis for another department if they need it. So it wouldn't be just a position that would serve the town manager. It'd be a position that would be available to all the departments, you know, to help them as well. So what I'm proposing is that, like I said, we already have the Economic Development Director position budgeted, so I want to move forward with recruiting for that position. I would like to have the council budget for and allow ordinance amendment for the salary ordinance for the town manager position and communications position.
Now, didn't we used to have an assistant town manager? What happened to that budget? Just that money?
That, the position last year, council eliminated from the salary ordinance.
Okay,
So the authority for it was taken away. But there is sufficient room in the budget to hire these positions that are being suggested.
yes.
Right. We just need the authority under the salary ordinance to allow for it.
You've been doing this a long time. You stepped into Munster. Be honest. Was it managed properly? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not gonna,
That's unfair.
it could be managed,
Playing darts.
yeah, any organization can be managed better.
We could improve upon the past and help our residents in the future with these.
That's the case in almost all organizations.
Yeah,
There's always
I
room
know
for
what you're saying.
improvement. So, and what I presented here is the areas I think need improvement, regardless of how you got to this point or what was done in the past. That's not my
Exactly.
concern. My concern is where you're at today and where you want to be
Exactly.
in the organization, where you want this organization to be operated very well and effectively, professionally, provide the services the community needs. And by doing that and having the proper operations, policies, procedures, and staff, you're gonna get the community to where you want it to be. Because you're gonna be able to provide the services you need to provide at the level they need to be.
And will this help provide our employees more to move forward into this organization, you know, where we could hire within?
That's one thing that's lacking is a succession plan.
Exactly.
And that's what, yeah, that's what you're talking
Yes.
about, and that's what would happen with an assistant town manager, because that's an HR function.
Okay.
It would be preparing a succession plan, so that would be working with all department heads. Who in your staff, you know, can move up in future years to, you know, upper level positions. And how do you accomplish that? You know, exactly. What training do they need? What do we need to do now to give them the training and experience so that in 5 or 10 years, they can move up into the next position, maybe be your next department head someday.
Yeah.
So yes, that would be part of
Okay,
what
good.
this would involve.
Any other questions?
In terms of bringing these people on, these employees, what are your thoughts?
As far as recruitment,
No, as far as how many, and when would you bring them on?
well, there would be 3 positions: economic development director, director of communications, and assistant town manager. I'd like to bring them on as soon as possible.
All at the same time?
Well, they would be somewhat staggered in that all 3 of these positions we can recruit for through a recruiting company, obviously. That's one way to go. That would cost probably $60,000 to $70,000, about $25,000 for each position. I don't know that we need to go that route. I've recruited for economic development director and assistant town manager several times in the past. And then we can do that internally. But the assistant town manager position, I'm sorry, should be recruited by a recruiting company. I have recruited the other 2 positions, communications position and economic development director position in-house, but the assistant town manager position, I think, should be done by a recruiting firm because it's a more substantial position. And advertising it and recruiting it through a recruiting agency is at a different level of stature, I think. You're gonna get a better pool of candidates. So that's the one position I would use a recruiting firm for. So to do that, I would need you to approve a contract and agreement with a recruiting firm to initiate that recruitment process. So that would probably take 3 to 6 months to fill, going through that process. The other 2 positions, if I started recruiting for those, you know, pretty soon, that may take 45, 60 days to fill those positions.
Yeah, part of the reason why I'm asking the question is to bring, let's say, all 3 on the same first floor. You need to have probably some space between hiring them so that you can bring them up to speed and work with each one. And then do we have room to place these?
We have office space, yes, in the town manager's office.
We got 3 offices.
There's 3 offices.
There's room for the extra desk in your room.
Yes.
Well, I'm asking the question because we need to know what we're doing. I believe we do need all the positions that Jim has talked about. It's just a question of bringing them on, and I do agree that the assistant town manager would probably be best to be recruited with a professional. Not that we couldn't, but I think you get broader, your net spread broader. Look what we got last time.
Yeah, it's about putting together a good team and moving this town forward.
Any other questions? I think the only other comment I'm gonna make, and glad Sergio is here, and it's not directed at him, but we need to look at ordinances, what we have down to work with businesses and work with developers that we want to have here. I'm not carving out anyone specifically, I'm just looking at the whole broad spectrum that we need to make sure that we are in line with what it takes to bring them in. And I think we're looking for quality professionals, but we're looking for quality businesses, quality operations that will benefit Munster, bring Munster to the level that we want it.
John?
I have a comment. It's my opinion that this request is premature. In February, we had a conversation at the council meeting about Senate Bill 1, and there were discussions about potential service cuts or tax increases that would follow pending to the Senate Bill 1 that was passed, resulting in property tax decreases. I've been seeking cost-cutting information or alternative revenue information for the last 4 months, and I have been unable to obtain any of it from anyone in leadership positions. And we have a budgeting session coming up in August, and the earliest that I have gotten any promises that is a week before we have to vote on the budget. This lack of transparency is deeply troubling. And when we've had conversations about potential service cuts or tax increases, talking about hiring a whole bunch of new staff before we even know where we're going to land on the budget, I don't think that conversation is appropriate. I'm going to reiterate what I've asked for the last 4 months. Please release the cost-cutting information, the alternative revenue information, and the budgeting information. The last time we were talking about fee increases last fall, I struggled to get my hands around that information, which was not released in a timely fashion. And we passed sewer and water rate increases based on fabricated long-term preventative maintenance numbers. With what's coming up and concerns that other communities, other elected officials have shared with me how their communities are handling this, getting our hands around the budgeting information sooner is greatly, there's a tremendous importance to that. And talking about hiring and spending money, which we may not know we have. Again, I respect what Mr. Marino is saying, but we've got a higher order concern here. Are we going to be looking at tax increases or service cuts? We have to get our hands around that before we start talking about hiring new people. So I reiterate my request that I've made repeatedly over the last 4 months. Please release the cost-cutting, alternative revenue, and budgeting information so that council can begin to study it now.
Trish, you have information on the salary ordinance and how we could sustain these 3 positions?
So I think it's important it gets confusing when we talk about where those cuts are. The cuts are going to be hitting primarily property tax funds, but all this goes back to the property tax. And that means mostly the general fund. When we talk about staff, police is the exception. Police is funded 100% through their payroll, all comes from the general fund. We don't have the option to pay for them from other places. We support it partly through the TIP fund. But when we talk about other staff members, they are being paid across multiple funds that are not impacted by the property tax situation that we're facing. They're paid from water, sewer, the technology fund, those 3 primary other funds that they are paid by. So that's part of what makes this financially sustainable is it is being handled across multiple funds. The property tax funds are supporting a small percentage of what these new employees are being paid.
Interesting. Didn't know that. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I was talking with one of the council members from Porter County. And there was a comment made about funding the ambulance that they have there. And I asked, well, how does that work? He said, well, quite honestly, the ambulances, and they have a number of them, do not pay for themselves. They have to be subsidized. And I have a concern about the ambulances in the fire department. And honestly, I don't see it as a revenue source. Talking with other individuals that have been involved with ambulances, it's an expense, so we have to look at that very carefully.
And we could look at that some other.
Not now, but we
Yeah,
need
but
to-
right now, we're talking about Jim's proposal of updating the salary ordinance to hire 2 more people. No, one's already. in.
Well, one's in there, but technically it's still hiring 3 people.
Well, the position for the communications position is somewhat budgeted in the sense that you budgeted to have, or you're already planning on paying the cost to have Structure Point do their communications plan. And then my understanding was when they did that, you were either going to continue to utilize them on an ongoing basis for implementation.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna turn it over to a staff person. So there seemed to be an intention that you were gonna have that cost in one fashion or another. So what this would do is still have Structure Point proceed with their plan, which is necessary. But then they would turn it over to the staff person. So that's a cost that was somewhat intended anyway. Now, one thing I'll point out is the data analyst position. That person recently retired. There's no need to replace that person. There's no need for that position. And that was a salary of, I think, $85,000 with benefits. It was about $100,000.
Okay.
So that cost would go to offset the additional salary for these other positions. Not gonna,
Okay.
so it's not necessarily an added cost because it's gonna be offset by that other position that's not gonna be filled.
I say we put it on Monday's agenda.
I'd like to just make a comment that I'm grateful that we've surrounded ourselves with people that are knowledgeable, experienced, and responsible as these numbers come across desks. That if you guys are coming to us with this information and requests, and you're not worried and, wondering where these monies are coming from, that puts me at ease, because I'll tell you firsthand, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a professional budget manager. I mean, it's like, people come with information, we're able to vet it as far as we can vet it. But it's one of those things, I'm comfortable with everything that you're saying. If we can make this thing function better, I think that's a great idea.
It's a win-win for the residents.
I'm gonna wait. I am deeply troubled by this conversation. The fact that we can't get transparency. I've heard what Tricia said, and I've heard her say things like this in the past. And then I've also heard her at council meetings talk about how the town will be in financial difficulties or words to that effect. What's wrong with being transparent? What's wrong with showing how the town is gonna pay for this, where the budget numbers are gonna, where the payments are gonna come out of?
She just said that.
No, she said in a very 30,000 foot level. I didn't hear specific accounts where it was coming out of. And this is something that I think in light of what we were warned in February, there needs to be transparent disclosure about how the funding mechanism. This is what we were elected to do. And this is something that I think is very reasonable for us to request from staff. Show us in black and white how you're going to fund these things and demonstrate to us that it's not going to negatively impact other services in other areas. This conversation about specific funds funding things, this was part of the conversation that we had with the police salary conversation at the beginning of 2024. And we all remember what emerged at those council meetings where the then interim town manager started telling us how the town is in financial difficulty. Then we had to press in and find out specifically, oh, maybe not so much. I don't want to be put in a position where we're finding out later that there's problems, or we have a staff member telling us that we can't afford this. Show it. That's what the councilors are elected to do. That's our one role. We pass budgets and we pass financial appropriations. And saying that I'm comfortable just glossing this over, I'm not. I want to see it in black and white, please. And I think that's a reasonable request.
I'm gonna just chime in on my discussion. That's what I'm looking to do, and I'm just gonna make a general comment. At this point in time, just because there's a position approved and then the salary ordinance doesn't mean we need to move forward. I understand maybe the assumption And I just think we need to talk about all this. I'd like to see us have a work study on this. And talk about it and I would agree, see the numbers and see the facts.
Joe?
Well, I mean, seeing the numbers versus the other request that was being made about cuts in, you know, trying to save money here and there is a different issue. And I think that, you know, if these numbers are true, which I would believe they are, and we can afford it, and they're coming from a different account or bucket, I don't see a problem with it. And you know, I don't think it's being irresponsible or being a risk taker, but if we want to make this, you know, in communications in particular, a communications director or a supervisor, I mean, that to me is crucially important because all the time, you know, people are like, they need to be in the know. They need to be, you know, questions answered. And so many times we sit at town council meetings, people do the public comment, we'll get back to you. You know, it's gonna be an easier thing if they could go on these websites and pages or whatever we're intending and get the information for themselves rather than we have to do, you know, give a memo to somebody, hey, could you email this?
Instead of getting all their information on what's up Munster.
Well,
We don't want that.
I'm just saying, I understand the arguments here, but I'm still, I feel very comfortable.
Joe, I'd like to direct a question, please. Have you actually been given reports on where these positions will be funded from?
Well, I've had discussions about, you know, the different accounts or buckets that the money comes from. And the explanation that Trish just made, you know, clarified it even further. But I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm sure they're gonna be worked in a reasonable way that if they're covered over an array of accounts, they're gonna be covered. And, you know, the money that's being saved, the information I think that you're requesting, whether it be from Public Works or be from the building department or wherever, that's a whole different issue, in my opinion.
Okay, well, let's set these to a side then. When it comes to this particular request, have you seen reports how this is gonna be funded?
No, but also too, is like you're saying, you haven't seen numbers and you're gonna get these budgetary numbers a week before or 10 days before, I don't know the date. But again, and you make the point that these numbers were fabricated or with the water rates. It's like, these are professional engineers that have, you know, many years of experience that come together with these numbers, and this was they pitched. I'm not one to argue, you know, how many gallons here, how many gallons there. And it's the same thing with, you know, the information that's gonna come to me. We got a Public Works department budget for this, and we got this budget for this. You know, and they'll pitch their pitch and we make a decision. But if it doesn't fit into the budget, we're gonna say, sorry, maybe next year.
Okay, have you seen any budget reports?
I have not.
Again, I reiterate, I'd like to see it in writing, how it's gonna be funded before I vote for this. And I would urge that the other members of council similarly do so. That's the reason we're elected. We're elected to actually be the custodians of the public's funds. And for us to say we're gonna vote on things in reliance on promises, when we've had conversations about service cuts and tax increases and things like that, in my experience, that's not the role. That's not why we're here. So that's my 2 cents.
We could certainly put that together.
Yeah, why don't you put it together? We're gonna have a meeting. We will have a work study, and I'd like to get this done before the following town council meeting, so you could get on with it. How's that?
I'm okay with that.
Action is good.
Let's get some reports. Show us how you're gonna fund this. Please.
Okay, any other questions before we go to the next meeting?
Well, the one other item here is, the communications plan with structure plan.
Yes.
So they do their presentation.
Mhm.
The next step is if we want to proceed with them, I have to bring a agreement to you for approval. Have them work on the
hold that off till we take care of it.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's wait another couple weeks. That's all we need. Everybody good with that? Okay.
I was just gonna say, I'm in agreement that we need to improve our communication, but as we're discussing, is it gonna be outside contractor? Is it gonna be higher, combination, and what we're gonna fund it? And I mean, we've already waited multiple years for the communication, improve the work site and all that, so.
Okay. With that, let's adjourn this meeting and go into the other room and have a short meeting. Joe and I gotta pick up food.
I mean, we'll see, kind of like in my conversations with Jim and Bob and you guys are always looking for ways to bring it in-house with things we have. You know, you have different ways of saving